All right, so we're looking at finding the average rate of change. Another way to think of average rate of change, something that we're a little bit familiar with, would be slope. So when we're finding the average rate of change, we will ultimately use the slope formula, y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So let's say that we have a function f of x equals 3x squared plus 4, and we want to find the average rate of change from x equals -1 to x equals 3. So before we jump into doing the slope, or actually finding the average rate of change, let's draw a picture real quick and I'll show you what we're looking at. So the graph of 3x squared plus 4 is going to look something like that. It is a quadratic of 4 and it's going to be wider. So when we say the average rate of change from where x is -1, so here's -1 on the x-axis, so we're talking about this point right here, to where x is equal to 3. So 1, 2, 3. So we're looking about right here. The average rate of change, if I draw a line between those two, the slope of this line's called a secant line, but the slope of that line is the average rate of change between these 2 points. So in order to find the average rate of change, I need to know what this point is and what this point is. I already have the x values, I need the y values. So we're going to plug in -1 for x, see what that y value is, and then we'll plug in 3 for x and see what that y value is. Then use those to find the slope, or the average rate of change. So we'll start with -1, so f of -1, using our function notation, gives me 3 times -1 squared plus 4, and I need to simplify that, so I can either use a calculator or I can use my order of operations, PEMDAS. P is parentheses, meaning operations inside the parentheses. All I have is a -1. There's nothing I can do with it, so I'll cross that off. Next thing is exponents. I do have an exponent here, a 2, so I need to square -1. So -1 squared gives me +1 plus 4. Multiplication. The parentheses indicate that I need to distribute or multiply, so 3 times 1 gives me 3. Bring down my plus 4. Done with multiplication. I don't have any division. And now I can just simply add. So this is going to give me 7. So I know the x value is -1 and the y value is 7. So there's this point right here. And now I'm going to do the same thing with 3. So f of 3 gives me 3 times 3 squared plus 4. So this gives me 3 times 9 plus 4, which is 27 plus 4. So I get 31. So when I plug in 3, I end up with 31. So now I have 2 x's. You couldn't see that. I have 2 x's and 2 y values. So I'm going to say this is x1, y1, x2, y2, and plug it into my slope formula. So remember, slope is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So my average rate of change, or my slope, will be y2, which is 31, minus y1, which is 7, divided by x2, which is 3, minus x1, which is -1. And now we'll simplify that. 31 minus 7 is 24. A negative and or a minus and a negative, whenever they're touching, they cancel each other out and make a positive, so 3 plus 1 gives me 4, and 24 divided by 4 gives me 6. So the average rate of change of my function, 3x squared plus 4, from -1 to 3 ends up being 6, right? The slope of that line is 6. So there's our average rate of change.